I'm Britt Bingold, and you are listening to Season 3 of Learning Unlocked. Educators are the key holders to unlocking learning for students. Today, as always, my goal is to provide you with resources and tools, the keys, to enable and accelerate learning for all students. Thanks for joining me today. Let's get started. Welcome back, key holders. Today we are talking with Dale.lunt and Brady on the podcast about practical strategies for restorative discipline. This is Dale's 32nd year in education. He taught middle school social studies and Spanish for 6 years, and then he's been an administrator in our district for 26 years now. He's been in high school, junior high, but now is at the elementary level. And right now, his main focus is doing his best to implement the aspects of restorative discipline at his elementary school. And there are very many levels to the restorative discipline processes that we're going to get into later in the interview. And although he doesn't claim to be an expert, he does sure know a lot about it. But he says his main desire is just to make school work for all learners. He and his wife, Suzanne, who you've probably, if you're a listener, have heard on the podcast as well. They have raised 4 children in Gilbert and are really grateful for the education they've received in Gilbert Public Schools. He also enjoys serving in the Gilbert community as an HD South Board member, scout leader, religious leader, and a youth league coach. He has 9 grandchildren and is passionate about all things outdoors, whether that is kayaking or hiking. He loves to travel and, of course, supporting ASU. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Go Devils. Brady is also from ASU, so yay, we are all Sun Devils today, and she's joining the conversation with us as she is a licensed master social worker, and she just started her 7th year in education. She received her bachelor's degree in psychology and her master's degree in social work from ASU. But since starting out in the district, she has worked with Dale and has enjoyed supporting his restorative discipline initiatives on their campus. She also has a 1-year-old daughter and enjoys trying out new restaurants. She does indoor cycling and home decor, which is a girl after my own heart for sure. I can't wait for you guys to hear our conversation today. So here is my interview with Dale and Brittany. Hi guys, welcome to episode 28 of Learning Unlocked. Today we are joined by Dale.lunt and Brady, and we are going to be discussing just practical strategies for restorative discipline. But before we get into that, I just want to say welcome. Thank you guys for coming on today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I really am excited to dive into what this all means, but also how you guys have been implementing it at your school. So, Dale, could you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about how you got into this field of education?
Sure. Excuse me. This is my 32nd year. I taught in the Kyrene district. I taught Spanish and social studies, and did some summer school administration, and was able to move over to Highland High School in the Gilbert district as a dean, and then the next year as an assistant principal. So I was there for about 6 years, and then Desert Ridge Junior High, and now I'm here at Oak Tree Elementary. And so that's been my path in time.
Your journey, yeah. But you said before that, when you were younger, did you not have any idea of really what you wanted to do? As you kind of just were like, you wanted to do maybe law, communications, or education. How did you kind of land on education?
Well, I think that there were a couple of things that influenced that. I actually originally was going to work in a family business, and just really, it's not that I didn't like the work, it's just the dynamics of being in a family business can be a challenge sometimes. And so I had always felt like education could be a pathway for me. And really, I think what kind of solidified it for me is that my wife she graduated before me, and she actually kind of put me through school, and she was doing it as a teacher. And
Awesome.
so after the family business plan stopped, I decided that education would be a good thing to do. And so I left business and went into education.
I love that. And I love that you said that you taught Spanish for a little while.
I did. Spanish, I had taken some in high school, and then I lived in Chile
That's
in
awesome.
South America for about 18 months. And I have never, ever once regretted learning it, because it just every day I use it for a number of reasons.
I bet. So, Brittany, welcome to the podcast. Could you give me a little bit of the background on how you got into education, the educational field?
Sure. So I have a bachelor's degree from ASU in psychology and a minor in family studies. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a marriage and family therapist. And
Yep.
when I talked to some professors, they're like, well, that's kind of like a small field, you know. And so I thought, oh, maybe I'll do counseling. That's a little bit more. And then a professor said, have you ever considered social work? And I was like, no, I don't know anything about that. But when I looked into it, um, there's a lot more you could do. There are a lot more areas that you can move into instead of just being a counselor or doing therapy.
Right.
So I went ahead and got my master's degree from ASU as well, and I got a master's degree in social work. I did an internship in a school. I really liked it. I graduated. I did another internship with a community-based behavioral health company. So when I graduated, I got a job with them, and I realized very quickly that was not the right fit for me at all.
Yep.
And a girlfriend of mine was a school social worker at a different district, and she was telling me about what she does, and I thought, wow, this seems really cool. My mom's a teacher. My husband's family is, there's a bunch of teachers in his family. I hear about education all the time. Like, I really want to look into this. So I very actively pursued a job in a school district, and this is my 7th year. And 7 years ago, it was really hard to find a school social work position in Arizona. There weren't as many available. A lot of districts didn't have school social workers, maybe like a guidance counselor. But Gilbert Public Schools was one of the ones that had them. And so I reached out to Susie Cadena, and I didn't even know who she was. And I was like, I want a job in your district. And she interviewed me, and I've been here ever since.
I love Susie. She's awesome. She's like, yes, come to me. That's awesome. So today we're joined by both of you guys. Dale, you're the principal at one of the elementary schools in our district, and Brittany, you're the social worker at Dale's school. And you guys have been really working together as a team to implement restorative justice and discipline at the school. So I'm really excited to dive in, and I appreciate you guys having being open about your journey into education, because I think we all have those moments where we have bumps like that lead us into this field. I originally wanted to be a dental hygienist. Clearly, that did not happen. I couldn't even imagine me being in that position. I talk too much. The poor people would be like, "Oh my gosh, this lady doesn't stop talking." But anyways, before we start diving deep into how you guys have implemented this and the benefits you've seen, I think we need to just define for the listeners, what is restorative discipline? And I've heard it called both. I've heard it called restorative justice, discipline. Dale, is it kind of on the same vein? Like I've seen it in both ways in articles.
Yeah, and that's been in whatever research I've done. I think when you're looking at it in schools, that's where you see the restorative discipline phrase
Okay.
used. Because restorative justice happens, and I think Brittany has seen it in her social work training, but restorative justice happens in all kinds of different settings, whether it's juvenile corrections, adult
Right.
corrections, and so on. So I think really in the schools, it's restorative discipline.
Okay, that's kind of what I mostly saw too, but I was like, ooh, I want to make sure I clarify that before we move on. Okay, so let's define what it is and what it's not for our listeners.
Sure. So really, when we're talking about the difference between the two, you've got this zero tolerance approach. You get in a fight, you get suspended 5 days, 10 days. um, with the zero tolerance. The restorative practices is, yeah, there's probably some consequences, but we're not going to have it impact your access to your education as much.
Right.
So we're going to do a lot to restore that relationship. So there will be some mediation. There will be maybe the two people involved. They might even do some things on the campus to restore the relationship with the campus. So in the
Yeah.
elementary school, the way that looks is you're not going to go out to recess. We're going to let you still get some energy out, but you're going to help us to clean the school. You might wipe doorknobs, or you might
Yeah.
actually take a tennis ball and remove scuffs from the tile floor, that kind of thing.
That
So
kind of thing.
The
Yeah.
consequence is like it matches what the offense was, so that they can have that connection, that what the behavior did and what it can cause as a problem, and how they can repair that harm that might have been caused.
Perfect. So if they did harm the school facility, then the restorative practice would not be to pull them out and suspend them for 10 days or 5 days, or even an ISS where they're in school suspension and they're not being able to attend their classes. But we're taking some time to talk to them a little bit about, hey, this is what you did. You need to accept that responsibility, and we're going to restore what we did harm to. So that's when you have that type of, it needs to match whatever the harm was.
right,
Okay.
exactly.
All right. That makes more sense. So it's not this zero tolerance policy. It really is. I love the word restorative. It's like restoring the relationship with whatever happened, whether it's person to person, person to a community or a society, or maybe a building, person to an adult relationship or a peer. That's kind of restoring that relationship for your community.
Yeah, and if you do any research on this, you see that a lot of our native cultures, indigenous cultures, have had this. I've heard from the Maoris in New Zealand. One thing a book that I like to read in a book club that I do, which is kind of a restorative effort that we do, is called Touching Spirit Bear.
Oh, I love that book. Yes.
It's an amazing book, and it
Uh-huh.
talks about this young man who really needs to take responsibility for himself, and a community coming together to help him do that. And so it has application so much to what we do in education.
Oh, it totally does. I actually, when I student taught ELA, that was one of the books I was assigned to teach, and it just it definitely has stuck with me. So, okay, and what drew you in as a principal and as a team to begin using this in your school community? Like, what was the first kind of like aha or like light bulb moment where you're like, we need to change how we're facilitating consequences and accountability and discipline?
Well,
I feel it was kind of natural. Like it was like we use PBIS or PBIS campus.
Okay.
And I think as we implemented PBIS, it kind of just naturally became our philosophy. We didn't even really know there was a name to it. I feel like we were kind of doing it, and then you hear restorative justice and we're like, yeah, that's what we're doing here. But I don't know. I feel like it was really organic.
No, I completely agree. And I think that, just coming from having been at the high school and junior high, where, clearly you're dealing with things that you never see or very rarely see at an elementary, to me, just that mindset, and I think it's common for most people, you do this, this happens. It's a very black and white, here's what happens. But I started to see as I was working with elementary kids, it was really kind of weird. As I could start to see these kids in second, third, fourth grade as eighth, ninth, 10th graders.
Yes, you could see the trail or the path they were going down. Yeah.
Exactly. And so to me, I just felt like if I just keep doing this zero tolerance approach, or here's exactly by the book, I wasn't doing anything to benefit these kids. And our campus is a school-wide Title I campus. And I just feel like our student population, they need support. they need some guidance, and they need to understand that their actions, first of all, they're responsible, but secondly, they can restore.
Yeah.
Because there was none of that prior to me coming here, where I saw that happening, because I was kind of at the end of the game, whereas here I'm at the beginning, and I just really felt like we need to do some things to help hopefully set a better direction for these kids.
Yeah, and we look at the whole child, and we know that learning is more than just academics. So how are we going to help them learn socially, emotionally, behaviorally? Like, that's another area that we want to develop them before they leave our campus.
Well, and you're starting out with these kids, and if you can teach them some of those self-regulation strategies early, and also that discipline doesn't always have to be so punitive, and it can be restorative, you can kind of get them off that track of consistent misbehavior.
And I think, Britt, that really what I was seeing was, and hearing, from teachers, well, this student is misbehaving, we need to do, they should be suspended or whatever. But I wasn't seeing any long-term change to behavior.
Right, by suspending them or,
Right, because all that does is either they find it appealing,
yep,
and they do everything they can to have it happen again,
which is not what we want, right?
Or they get just more and more angry and set in those negative behaviors.
Yeah.
Especially,
I'm the bad kid, right? Like, this is what I do. This is who I am.
Yeah. And so it actually, the other part of that is it actually ended up being more work for, I think, for the teacher, because, depending on the length of a suspension, they had to put to work together. Or,
absolutely. Yeah.
The student returns to the classroom and, okay, now I've got to get you caught up.
Right. Because they haven't done the work, because they had basically a 10-day vacation.
Right. And so I don't want to give the impression that suspension and so on is not in the equation, because
sometimes it is necessary. Absolutely.
Sometimes it's necessary, because you also need to make sure, depending on the severity of it, you need to make sure that the other students are seeing.
Use it strategically.
Yeah, very strategically.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to look at our discipline data, you would see in the last 3 years or so that the days of suspension on our campus have dropped quite significantly.
That's great. Yeah. Because you're implementing these and you're looking at them, like Brittany, like you said, the whole child. Where are they coming from? Who are they? What's their background? All those different things that we need to take into account. And so really you just have to basically handle each case that you get, Dale, through your door, kind of independently, right? Like, each situation has to be kind of dealt with separately. It's not like just a one size fits all discipline model.
That is 100% correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I got it. All right. I love that. Okay, so there has been a growing emphasis recently on preventative and restorative approaches. Like, I've seen it on Jennifer Gonzalez's blog. She talks a lot about that, who I follow often. I even heard, I'm a huge Brene Brown fan, and so I listened to her podcast, and she's even talked about it in terms of adult leadership, and how even she's working with CEOs on restorative justice and practices, even in the workplace. So it's not necessarily just this random thing. And I love, Brittany, how you said it came about organically. Like, we're just not seeing the results of them leaving and coming back, and they haven't changed their behavior. So what are those approaches that you use, and why do you feel, we kind of touched on this a little bit already, but why do you really feel they work better than maybe a traditional approach to discipline in schools? I mean, I know of schools, not in our district, but in other district, where they still have kids, if they talk in a class, walk the lines of the basketball court during recess until recess is over. So it's out there still, these punitive consequences that really have no match or meaning to what the kid has done in class.
So here, kind of relating this to Hattie's work, reflection
yes,
is so important. to what we do professionally, but also, of course, with students and their learning. And I just the whole reflection piece is key, because permanent change won't happen until we realize our role in the problem. And so I feel like that was part of that organic approach that we had. So anyway, I feel like I veered a little bit from your question there.
No, you're okay.
But the prevention piece is big. And I don't know if this is a good time to, excuse me, to talk about the book clubs that I do, or the book studies with students.
I think this is the perfect time, because if you're talking about Hattie, and who I love, and we're talking about reflection and basically really metacognition, right? Thinking about their thinking about the way they've done things, has a huge effect size on not only their learning, but I think also who they are, and who they are becoming as an individual. So I would love to hear how you kind of approach this at your school, and one of the ways that you do that is the book club. So I'd love to hear about that.
Well, so again, another one of those organic things. About 4 years ago, probably, Brittany, we had a group of, I don't know, 6 or 7 boys that just in 6th grade that just didn't seem to care about much.
Yeah.
Behavior, academic, and so on. And I had a relationship, I believe, with each one of them, pretty, straightforward relationship, understanding, that kind of thing. But I could tell that they just needed more. And so I thought, well, what if I read, because I'm a huge reader, and I really like young adult literature. And
Same.
I thought, the book Hatchet would be good with this group. And so I started with them. They came into my office. I had a copy of the book for each of them. And we just read. Usually they prefer to listen to me read.
Right.
But I'll stop at different points and we'll have conversations, whether it's just key to the book or whether I feel like it's key to maybe helping them to reflect on themselves. Each one of those boys had significant trauma in their lives. And so we had some great conversations, and actually they weren't all 6th graders, if I'm not mistaken. I think we had one boy that we thought could handle it, and he was in 4th. And we just talked about it. We read another book with this group called A Monster Calls. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No, but now I would have read it.
Oh, I'll get you a copy of it.
Because I've read Catching Spirit Bear and The Hatchet, but not When the Monster Calls. So I'm excited.
And so it just kind of continued. A Monster Calls is actually a movie now based on the book and follows the book very closely. But they all have trauma. They all have where somebody figures out how they can change themselves to make a situation better. And just really great discussion. So I've continued. It's evolved a little bit. Our librarian has also gotten involved.
Yeah, I love that.
She has helped me to like the last book club that we did second semester last year. We started it off where she gave me some little YouTube previews and things like that. And I let the kids choose. So I now have their boys and girls participating. I'm getting ready to actually start one next week, and I think that we'll start with a Monster Calls with that group. And I'll end it usually where, with permission from the parents, we'll show the movie and I'll get some pizza and
have a good time.
Yeah, because we really build a good community by the time we're done. So what I have found is, and I get input from Brittany as our social worker, from our school psych, from the teachers, from the ones that we're starting to see as what we call the frequent flyers in the office that might benefit. So our first group starts next week for this year. Usually I've done it either beginning of second semester or sometimes it's been the last quarter. I wanted to get a jump start on it this year. So it's
Especially with those sixth graders, right?
yes. So it really gives me, and sometimes Brittany will come in and read if I have a conflict, or even our psychologist, but just really opens up some great conversation. And I can really tell when the kids are just sitting there reflecting, and I love it when a student will all of a sudden just verbalize that connection. It's like, yes, that's what we wanted.
Right.
I love it too, because some of the ones that you think would be the most hesitant and not want to engage are the ones that are looking forward to it the most.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
If Mr. Lunt's not in our chillville right at that time, they're up. Where's Mr. Lunt? Where's Mr. Lunt? They're ready for their.
They're ready for it.
And it's more to them than, oh, I just got out of class. Like, they genuinely look forward to it. And they can talk. They'll talk to me about what they read and what they're learning, and it's really cool.
So another piece, digging, like you're saying, taking this deeper dive. Brittany just mentioned Chillville, and that's a room we've developed on our campus. It's a calming room.
Love that.
It has subdued lighting. It has all kinds of seating options. And you just walk in, like the paint is dark blue. You just walk in and it's just an immediate sense of, I can breathe.
Yeah.
There's some space here.
Like a different, like kind of a moody vibe. Like, it's really calming.
Yeah.
And it's Chillville, right?
Chillville, yeah.
I love. Okay, so now I know where to go when I want to work.
Please do. We do. We have some chairs that will, give you a massage.
Okay, so I know where to go now. The kids will be like, "Who is this lady, and why is she in Chillville?" I'll be like, "I am here to chill. Thank you very much."
Yeah, and it is. Brittany just mentioned it is for adults as well as students.
Yeah.
I wish I had a full-time person to be in there, but sometimes our staff will take our students here for their emotional disabilities in our self-contained program.
Right.
And they'll go in and just work with them. It's just a great space. We converted our old computer lab.
Yeah.
We started getting Chromebooks
Makes
for everybody.
sense.
And the psychologist we had at the time, she was Brittany and I said yes, and we did what we could to support. But I think she was really the one. She really had a passion for it. Spearheaded it. And it's really turned into a great space on our campus.
That's amazing. And is that where you hold the book clubs, or is that?
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's where we do it now. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, it is really restorative too, because we've had, if we do have a kiddo having a hard time, and I'm like, hey, why don't you come up with me to the office? Just the connotation of the office. Like, I had a kid yesterday who didn't want to come up because he thought he was in trouble, and he was just having a hard time. And so it's a really great alternative, especially because it's right in the middle of our campus, to say, let's go into this room and have a chat. And it's a lot less threatening. It's a lot less intimidating than coming through the office.
Yeah. Yep.
It's been really, really great.
Yeah.
Yep. Just even switching that wording to, hey, let's just go to Chillville and chat. Like, I'd be like, okay.
Right.
And a lot of times you're like, oh, I haven't seen it before. And I'm like, let me show you,
Yeah.
And they'll, like I say, there's bouncy balls, there's swivel seats, there's, other more comfortable kinds of bean bags and so on.
Yeah.
And the kids just, sometimes, depending on the age of the kids, they'll, they want to bounce and bounce and bounce, but eventually it's a different place, and it's a place where we can have conversations where it's like, you're not in trouble. We just need to talk.
Yeah. We just need to connect, right? And we need a space to do that where it doesn't seem so formal. I've told so many teachers and they look at me like I'm insane. But then the few teachers that actually do it, I always say, if you can, remove your teacher desk from your classroom. And they look at me like, what? Where do I put all my stuff? And I'm like, you can still have stuff.
Yeah.
But just removing that barrier, it kind of creates this more of a community and easier access to the teacher as like this human, and not necessarily like this person who's like the overlord. Yeah. It's so.
And that's another, great point, Brittany or Brit, because I think if you were to walk around our campus, you'd find maybe 25% maybe have a teacher desk.
Yeah, it's starting to go. I'm pushing for it.
Well, I am. The other thing that we've done, our PTO was great last year. we just as we were dealing with some kids, we realized, we don't always want to take them out of the classroom, right?
Right. No.
We don't want them to see, well, if I just misbehave, then I'm out of the room. So we worked on putting together, and our PTO was great. I made like a list going through Amazon and little calming corner kits.
Yep.
To be used in the classrooms. And
that's
so,
perfect.
We didn't get that many, and not every room, teachers could make their own, but we got a rug, we got some fidget things, we got some books, sand timers, we got a weighted animal to, that works.
Yes,
well
the weighted
sometimes.
stuff, right.
So, again, that's part of that restorative approach, because one, we're restoring the relationship between the teacher and the student as well as their peers, but also we're seeing that here is how you can calm yourself, here's how you can be appropriate and education ready,
right,
without having to leave the room.
And having access to the curriculum still, but being able to learn to self-regulate.
Right. If you need that break, you're fine to take that break. You're still present in the classroom and gleaning as much as possible from what's
you
happening.
can rejoin when you feel like you've gotten control over whatever it is that's happening. I remember even as a high school teacher, I had flexible seating, and you rarely found me up because they were always doing what, their stuff. And if I had a kid that I was just not jiving, I would bring them over, and I had like those little floor pillow things that look like little fluffy chairs kind of that you just lean on the wall. And I'd have like 4 of those, and I'd be sitting on the floor with the kid, and we'd have our stuff on our laps, and I'd be like, so what's going on? Like today, it just seems like you're super off. Like I can't, what's going, and just that little one-on-one, like I remember being observed once and like they couldn't find me because I was on the floor with this kid. Well, and everybody else was working. It looked kind of chaotic, but I was on the floor and I was just talking through this stuff with this freshman, and we were getting our own kind of thing done so I could send him back to his team, from him to be able to, and I didn't even have a quarter. It was just kind of like against the wall, but it does make a difference for, I think, as the teacher too, is you're not just seeing this kid as like, he's always the one that interrupts my lessons, or she's always the one that, you know what I mean? Like you can start to develop relationships, and they start knowing like, oh, this is how I interact with people. This is how I can do this. So okay, that's awesome. Okay, so let's do a little bit of a deep dive. So I would like to go through the tiers, because you said there's different tiers of restorative discipline.
Yeah. So, excuse me. Tier 1 is just, basically that it's the prevention piece. What do we have? What do we know about the child? How are, really, I think the first part of it is developing those relationships.
Right. Those connections.
Doing those trainings, like we've done lots of trauma trainings with our staff, so everybody kind of has the same level of knowledge.
Yeah, you said something about Harmony. Was that the training?
Oh, Stanford Harmony.
Stanford Harmony is one that we've done. Back in the days of now I'm forgetting it.
Just say of yore, because honestly, with COVID, I've totally have like I have like a 3-year gap in my life. I don't know.
Wendy Peterson used to work for them, and they had at the county level, they had some people who did some great trauma-informed training.
Right.
And they came out and worked with our staff, and we kind of restructured the teacher's day so that we could accommodate the amount of time that they needed. So we, maybe it was substituting, maybe bringing in substitutes, maybe it was me covering classes myself.
Yeah.
All kinds of things so that we could do job embedded professional development, trying to give everybody the understanding that this is important. This is a campus-wide initiative.
Right.
And so part of it is, like Brittany is saying, is the training. Another part of it is in that tier 1, in the prevention. We're trying to just get the relationships, get the kids comfortable in our rooms. Then there's the intervention part that it comes into play when students break rules, someone has caused harm to someone else. This is usually when you start to see the punishments being given, that zero tolerance. So that's where restorative justice does more of the mediations, and as we talked about earlier, just getting everybody comfortable in their, part of it is getting people, which leads to this reintegration, but how do I avoid having to give you a more severe consequence?
Mm-hmm.
What is that process? And like you said, it varies student to student.
Absolutely. Or offense to offense, I'm assuming as well, because you
Well,
got
yeah.
to follow your district policies, but
Well,
at the same.
sure. I mean, I can't just say, oh, well, let's just talk about you bringing a knife to school and
Right.
send it right back to class.
That's not
You
going to
know,
work. Yeah.
But I still need to have that conversation.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely. Yes.
And if it fits in with district policy, then I have to do that suspension and possibly a referral to our district hearing officer, et cetera. But then you get to the tier 3, which is reintegration.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things really I remember from being at the secondary level. A student comes back and they just are expected to fall right back into their routine.
Yes.
And the reintegration part to me is, how do I help you get back and feel okay?
Yeah.
And it can be feel okay with the teacher, feel okay with the kids, feel okay with me as the principal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like to kind of front load a little bit with them. And depending on the situation, usually I like to meet with them. And it's been a long time since we've had a significant suspension, but I like to meet with them, not maybe, but definitely involve Brittany so that she can do some follow-ups with them. But I like to just help them think about, okay, when you go back into class, all the kids are going to ask you what happened.
Oh, yes. I hated that as a teacher. I was like, just leave them alone.
Right. So a lot of times what I'll do in several setting or, different cases is I'll say, you know what, use me. Just tell them Mr. Lunt said I can't talk about it or I'll get in trouble.
I do that with my child. If she doesn't want to go to a sleepover or something, I'm like, just use me.
Sure. Yeah. And it works because it takes
does.
that burden off of the student from trying to have to come up with
an
an
answer,
acceptable story or a lie
right.
or whatever. So
yeah.
We just want to, and this is where I go back to why I felt it was so important, because, it's real easy to come back and all of a sudden you are kind of this James Dean like celebrity.
Yeah.
Oh, dude got in trouble or whatever.
Yeah, rebel without a cause. Yeah,
right.
He's coming in. Yep.
And so really just want to say, you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
We still like you. We want you here.
Right. Yeah.
And we just do all we can to help get them back into school focus. Brittany, have I missed anything on that?
No, we just want to follow up. And a lot of times when a kiddo's done something, maybe on the more severe end, it's not random.
Right.
So we try to dig a little deeper and be like, what's going on? Like, why did you bring that knife? Like, were you trying to be cool? Is it a self-esteem thing? Were you feeling like you need to protect yourself? Is there a play situation? So what was really the
root of it?
It wasn't just about that. So that if there is something going on with them, they have an opportunity to let us help them. And then when they come back, we can, if it was a bully situation, we can offer mediation. We can make sure if they need to, move classes so that the kids are more comfortable with, or, whatever the case might be, that we have an opportunity for them to have whatever issues going on resolved for them as well.
Yeah, which again, I think goes back to one of the dangers of the zero tolerance approach is, I know you did this, you're going to get these consequences. It's over,
Yeah.
Case closed.
Right.
Whereas, okay, tell me more. Like Brittany was saying, how did things go at home this morning? What, just really trying to figure out so that we don't have a repeat.
Oh, a repeat offender over and over. That's the goal, right? Is to narrow that to zero, right? We want those kids in school and enjoying school. I always would tell my kids, they come in and be like, because I knew they were suspended. And I would always never ask why. I never really wanted to know as a teacher because I just didn't want to have like some preconceived thing in my head. So I would just be like, hey, I'm so glad you're back. I'm so bummed you were out. I missed you. And kind of here's what we're doing. And I had time in my day to do that just because of the way I set up my room. But it was really, really, I tried really quickly to make sure that they didn't feel like I was judging them or anything like
Yeah.
that, because I feel like it's a little awkward at first when they come back for sure. All the kids ask, and I just wanted to be like, leave them alone. They're like, they're
Right.
fine. We're fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah, and that's, you bring up a great point too, Britt. Um, it's really important for teachers to know what's going on and how they can be a part of that restorative process.
Yeah, because not just you guys. I mean, it's got to be everybody, right?
Yes, and so I'll usually bring the teachers in. We departmentalize in grades 4 through 6, and so I want to make sure each of the teachers is aware that works with that child. I'm not putting it out to the whole staff, obviously,
Right. Yeah.
but here's what happened. Here's a little bit of the background on it, and really, when the student comes back, maybe they need to be a part of that reintegration process, or I may just say, hey, so and so needs to just be treated as if they were never gone,
Right.
and so help him or her to
Adjust.
transition safely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So for the next question I have, and we've been talking a lot about this, but my own experience as a teacher but also as a parent. I have a 9-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son, and I have never once been successful at punishing them to get them what I want them to do.
Right.
Ever. Like, it always, if I have a conversation with them, it's a serious conversation. There is going to be a consequence. And I've also been taught through a child psychology class that I've been actually taken at my son's preschool, to match the behavior, right, to the consequence.
Right.
But I've never once been successful at being like, okay, you hit your sister, now go sit down for 10 minutes and think about what you like. That never has worked for me. Or like, it always has to be like a conversation, and then like, okay, how can we make this right, and that type of thing. So I totally agree with this whole approach. And that's why I was so excited. And I'm so pleased I could have you guys on today. But now that teachers have heard this, and other principals, what are some practical ways that they can kind of dip their toes in and implement this, in their classrooms and schools?
Well, one of the things I think I shared a link to an
You
article
did.
that,
And I'll totally link that to the show
yeah,
notes too, so they have it.
I think that really gives a great foundational uh, experience to or an understanding. Uh, One thing I really like is this concept of having a trustworthy community, where,
Yeah.
and I love this, having a fearless community. I think
Yes.
a lot of times we think of fearless as somebody who has this extreme courage,
Hmm.
but when I talk about fearless, and that's why I emphasize it that way, is
Yeah.
that,
Fear dash less, right?
yeah,
It's not the
they're
word fearless. Yeah.
right, so that there's no fear of participating socially, emotionally, or educationally in that classroom.
Hmm.
And so I think, going back to the reflection piece, how do they do it? It can be taking that extra time to visit with kids. I know in our kindergarten, our teachers have figured out some things where they can structure their class time, especially during intervention time, where they can be a little more one-on-one with their
Hmm.
students.
Yeah.
Um,
Accessible.
and I think that trustworthy community is a real key.
Yeah.
Getting to know your kids, finding out, what their interests are, and I know that sounds very cliche, but I can't, it goes deeper.
It does. Yep.
What do I need to know about this child to effectively connect? Brittany, I don't.
Yeah, one thing I often recommend is, those relationship building techniques like the 2 by 10. So take 2 minutes a day, 10 consecutive days to meet with a student and just let them talk to you, and it has nothing to do with their behavior or their academics, and just let them like connect with you. And especially if that relationship's been broken or and needs some repair, or you just aren't connecting with them, there's a new student coming in that's having trouble integrating, because we know that kids respond so much better when they trust somebody and they'll
Mm-hmm.
open up.
Yep.
And I know you're not going to like every kiddo that comes into your classroom. That's realistic, but
Right. Yeah.
not letting them know that, because they sense that really quick. They're
They
smart.
do, and Hattie even has that as a huge low ranking number. Like if kids feel disliked in class, they will not
Yes.
learn from you.
Yeah.
They're gonna just tune you out and shut
Yep.
down,
Yep.
and I think the relationships go even further, and it's with the families too. And so I often encourage our staff to send happy notes home. You know, a lot of times when a parent sees our phone number calling, I've had parents call and I have some good news, and they go, "What happened?"
I know, but they do. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
what
Yeah.
happened now? And I'm like, no, it's okay. So just send an email or a note, or I'll pick up the phone and just say, your kiddo had an awesome day today, and that can help them know, okay, there's positive things going on, and so the next time when you do have to call, maybe something didn't go so well, they're not going to be
Mhm.
so defensive. And so I feel like
Right.
it goes so far with the students and with families.
Yeah, and I think, Britt, having, students have to have buy-in with the classroom norms.
Right.
And if they do, it's real easy for the teacher to just go right back to, it's like an anchor chart
Mhm.
in the classroom. Did you write your 3 paragraph essay with all the correct, capitalization and punctuation and so on? It's the same kind of thing. Here are our norms. We've talked about these. We understand them. We agree to them.
Mhm.
Where did your behavior not match those norms?
Mhm.
How do we get back to
And
that?
how do we get back to that? One of my first grade teachers, I love a phrase I heard when I was in doing an observation the other day. She says to the kids, "Fix your choice."
Oh, I like that.
It's just three
Yeah.
quick, easy words, but it really has a lot to do with what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I
Fix
need to
your
do that
choice.
as an adult. Fix your
Yeah,
choice.
reflect, think about, what the norm is. Now
Yeah.
reflect and fix that choice, whatever it is. If it's not part of our norms, do that. Speaking about the level with principals, um, I know several have attended, and some of us will be attending a restorative justice conference in December. I believe his name is Kelvin Oliver.
Okay.
He does quite a bit with this, but um, I think the biggest thing for principals is you have to know what the culture is. And I say this from experience, um, maybe not all positive experiences from, this is my 9th year here.
Yeah.
But when I really first started thinking more along the lines, as we said, organically, sometimes teachers would question why I did what I did, because maybe I didn't communicate it as effectively as I should have, and mostly because I was still kind of feeling my way through. But teachers need to know that they can trust you as the principal, and part of that is communicating effectively. This is why I did what I did. This is how I see it impacting this student now, but also in the future. So I guess really what I'm trying to boil it down to is teachers need to see the reason why you're doing what you're doing,
Right.
because there may be an expectation on the campus from prior leadership
Mhm.
that it's going to be handled more of the zero tolerance approach as opposed to the restorative approach.
Or even like just how we were raised. I mean, I remember
Oh,
just,
totally.
that was a lot of principals and teachers like that's how there was a zero tolerance. I mean, so that's not even, it's like an expectation of the community. This is a shift.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I looked up Calvin Oliver, and his thing is leaving the village. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, it looks like he does restorative practices for administrators.
Yep.
And his main line is shifting from student back to child, which I love. I just looked it up, and I think a lot of times I didn't really feel this until I became a parent. My teaching style changed the moment I became a parent.
Isn't that true?
Like, I don't know if that was true for anybody else, but I just was like, oh my gosh, this is someone's child. Like,
Yeah.
I want to treat this child like I would hope another teacher would treat my child, if they were
And
going through something.
I wanted to mention this too, because this works for principals and teachers and certainly for parents. But in that same article that you're going to link in your notes, if you get down further into the article, 7 questions that change school discipline.
Oh, I love that.
What
Yeah.
happened? How did it happen? How were you affected by what you did? So that's that reflection. What do you need to make it right? And we use that a lot with our victims.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, I see it.
What
It's like an infographic. Lovely. Yeah.
what part did you play in it? What can you do to repair the harm? Who else was affected by what you did?
How did you feel when you did it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so true too, because a lot of times we do things and we don't even know why we're doing them. Like, it just happens, right? And we're like, oh, and you felt really crummy when you
like
did
how
it.
did you feel before it happened, but then also
How'd you feel during and after? Yeah.
right? And did you feel shame? Did you feel embarrassed? Did you feel more anger?
Yeah.
What just a lot of it's kind of guided reflection.
Yep. And I think what you're saying too is I have so many teachers that come up to me with the current position I have, and they ask me to come in and be like, I need classroom management help. And I'm like, ugh, because there's no it's like, I get that. And sometimes it is about just procedures, but most of the time when they're having problems with classroom management with kids, it's because they have no credibility with the students. And so when we talk about that, I talk about like, look, they don't trust you. Like, and that's a hard conversation to have with the teacher,
Right.
because it's like, how do I build trust with them, or how do I, one of the components of teacher credibility is competence, and they all are like, well, I know math, and I'm like, that's not what
Right.
I'm saying. I hope you know math and reading and science, that's why you're a teacher. But they don't care about that. They care that you know how to teach it to them, and you care that they get it.
Right. You care that they
That's
are successful in their learning.
right. So when I have those conversations with teachers about making connections with your kids and making them buy into your classroom norms, and having, credibility with them, if you do all of those things first, your classroom management is relationships.
Yeah. No, you're 100% correct. And part of it, I think, goes to the efficacy piece,
Yep.
because I am not a mental health expert.
Right. Oh, nor am I.
You know what I mean? I'm not certain things. And so I need to stay in my lane and look to others to help me. And that's why Brittany's here with me. That's why, they're, I
trained in it.
had Brittany, and I had our psychologist who helped to develop the Chillville room. And they had to kind of reprogram me. They had to help me understand, why is this beneficial? I mean, I had that idea, but they could give me more of that expert input. And still, I don't see myself as an expert. I see me as part of a team. So I think the advice would be to principals: use those people that are very accessible to you, but also for teachers, use those people.
Yeah.
And not when you're at the end of your rope.
Yeah, that's not the time, right? You're like, I'm done. I'm checking out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a real. Let me, because I wanted to say this earlier. One of the things that I have learned is that when somebody is upset, that is not the time to try to process.
Right.
It's not. It's definitely not the time to be talking consequences.
No, or tell them to calm down. That never helps.
Right. So part of it is learning those calming techniques. And something I just learned at a conference this last summer. Give a kid who's very escalated, if they'll take it, give them some water.
Nice.
And it just, so I went out and I bought a little thing of those 8-ounce waters, and they're in my office now. But we just need to let them get back to a very regulated state.
Yep.
so that then we can have those conversations
Mm-hmm.
to help them make changes.
Right. Yeah, I call that flipping their lids. Like when I would teach and a kid would come in, or a girl or a boy would come in, and they were crying or upset because they broke up with their person in the hallway before class, right? And they're like, I need to go to the restroom. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, there's nothing I can't say like, no, you need to sit down and learn. Like they're not gonna hear a word I
No,
say.
no,
Oh yeah, okay, go take a minute, take a break, because their limbic system in their brain is just freaking firing all of these charges, and
yep,
until you get them back online, they're going to not be able to hear anything you're saying. So I like that,
exactly.
just giving them a little bit of water helps. Okay, so we're going to wrap up here, but I really really liked what you talked about at the end here, where you said teachers and administrators need to start small because it's clunky, and I like that you used the word clunky. Because I feel like a lot of things we do in education are clunky at first. So, what's the best way? Like you said, you don't have to have all the answers. You don't need to be an expert, but there has to be some kind of mental shift for you to do this in a school. And I also liked that you said that you would never arrive. It's never going to be perfect, right?
Well, because you never know what's walking through your door,
Yep,
and
exactly.
and you can't just sit there and magically wave a
That's
wand and
education.
say, "Here's how we're fixing it." You know, you might have some good ideas, but they're just, family dynamics,
Oh, yeah.
society. Throw the pandemic
Oh,
and
yeah. Let's
isolation,
just
and
throw a pandemic in there. That's perfect.
so you don't arrive and say, "Here I sit as the all-knowing person related to
Restorative
restorative
discipline.
justice or restorative
Yeah.
discipline." Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. And thanks, Brittany. Yeah, Brittany, do you have anything to add on that for social workers or school psychologists that are in a school that want to implement something like this? Like, how do you start? Where do you go? Who do you talk to? That type of thing.
I definitely think it starts with your relationships with the teachers and modeling that for the relationships you want them to build with their students.
Yeah.
Because once I've had the relationships with the staff, then they buy into my suggestions a lot more. So I definitely say spend that time to build those relationships with your teachers, so they want to come to you, so they'll buy into some of the ideas, because I have been met with resistance when I've said let's put a calming corner, and things like that. But I think,
Oh yeah, it's totally not our culture. Like
yeah,
from where we were. Like we're starting to move in that direction, but I do feel like we weren't there even when I was in school.
right.
Um, right? So,
And I'd say for teachers, remembering that you're the climate, so how
mm,
you're feeling affects your kids. And so sometimes, we have bad days, but remembering we're the climate, we set the tone. And so being mindful of your own emotions and checking those, and then coming at kiddos with the approach instead of like what's wrong with you,
mm,
reframing that to like what happened to you, what's going on with you. I
I
think
love
when you
that.
reframe that helps teachers come at it with a much more empathetic approach when they're trying to intervene with their kiddos.
Yeah.
Oh, let's just say that again. So instead of we say, because I think that happens a lot. Instead of what's wrong with you, or why are you acting out like this, or you say what's happening with you right now, right? Or what's happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, love that. That's awesome. That's great advice. Okay, Dale, are you ready for your rapid fire questions?
Sure.
Okay, first rapid fire question. Education is fill in the blank.
It's never boring.
Yes.
Always changing, and that's, I think, what's kept me in it for so long. It's very dynamic, and absolutely equally as much about the science as it is about the heart of the education.
Oh, I love that. I totally agree. I love the science and the art and the heart of education. That's what keeps me in it too. So, question number two, what or who inspires you?
Well, certainly my faith, but seeing my grandchildren learn and truly grow, I'm just always amazed by them. I see them
Yeah.
I, I, different eyes when I see my grandchildren.
My mom says so much more fun than raising me.
Well,
She's always like, I love you, but man, is it fun to have grandkids. And I said, well, I'm glad for you.
well, and I think parents, we always appreciated that grandparents could do, though, could do the spoiling, or could
They can,
be
yeah.
that stopgap, or fallback.
It's awesome because they get all of the fun. My mom says it's like all of the fun without so much of the worry.
Right.
She's like, I had so much fun with you, but I also had a lot of worry that you would be successful and you'd be able to do this. And
Hmm.
now you get to worry about that, and I just get to have all the fun.
Right.
I
Right.
said, well, that's good. Well deserved. Okay, number 3. If you could pass on any wisdom to students, what would you share?
Really, I just want them to see that they have the power within themselves to make things good for themselves, growth mindset and
Hmm.
grit. If they truly understand those two concepts, they will be successful in relationships, in employment, in just all aspects, family life, everything.
Yeah, any situation that they find themselves in, if they can recognize that power, that it's not just over, you know,
Hmm.
um, because you're a certain age or because you've mastered it or achieved a certain thing. There's always room to grow, and that's your personal power. Um, that's awesome. Okay, what are your must-have smartphone apps?
Well, uh, I love that our district uses the Google Suite, and that
Yes.
there are there's an app for each one of those things on the Google Suite. So I've downloaded those, and I use those quite a bit. Like, I can create a presentation right on my phone.
Yeah.
While I'm sitting in the doctor's office or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Of course, Amazon,
Oh,
other
yeah.
lifestyle apps. But another one that I really like is the calm.com
Yeah. That's a
app.
great app.
And I think any of those that have to do with mindfulness are great for
Hmm.
us to have quick access to, for sure.
Awesome, for sure. And then what song do you know all the lyrics to?
Um, this came to my mind, Jukebox Hero by Foreigner.
Okay.
It's just a great pump up song. I know every voice intonation and lyric to that. uh, over time, our family has developed a Christmas caroling tradition, and it's really just two songs, but the main one is "Joy to the World,"
Uh-huh.
and so I can sing the bass part to that and belt it out with
Nice.
the best. And of course, the Beatles, that's my favorite band, and so many of their songs I know by
By
each of the
heart.
words. But
Yeah.
I'm a product of the '70s and '80s,
Yeah.
and so those are things that kind of music gets me going.
Yeah, that's your pump up. That's your generation.
Yeah,
Gets
Journey,
you. Oh, Journey. I
Phil
love Journey. And
Collins.
Queen. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Queen. Oh boy.
Yeah, we could go on. I'm not a product of the 70s, 80s, but my mom always told me that I have that old soul when it comes to music. She's like, and I think it's just from her playing them when I was younger.
Yeah, I think
So,
you're right.
yep. Okay, so this was awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time. If listeners want to learn more from you, I'm going to share those links that we talked about in the show notes. But if they have a specific question, if a principal wants to reach out, where can they find you?
Well, I am on Twitter, but not very much.
Okay,
So really, the best is just my email address, dale.lunt at gilbertschools.net.
perfect. Awesome. And I will link all that stuff. And I really appreciate Brittany you coming on today and just all the work you guys are doing at the elementary school to help these kids um, get some restorative practices under their belt before they go on to the drama that is middle school and high school. I think helping them start now is huge. So great job, guys.
Okay, well, thank you so much. It's been fun.
All right, thank you. Have a good afternoon.
All right, take care.
Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Learning Unlocked and finding out more about those practical strategies for restorative discipline in the school environment. If you have listened today as a GPS educator, you can receive PD recertification credit by visiting our Employee Hub page and navigating to professional growth and then digital PD courses. If you scroll down, you'll see the podcasts and the links to get that certification. Just a reminder that we are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at GPS Prof Growth. That's at GPS PROF GROWTH. For more information or resources from this episode, please visit our website at learningunlocked.libsyn.com/website. That's where I'll have the article that Dale mentioned, and also the conference he mentioned as well will be linked on that website. We are distributed by Libsyn, Libsyn, to Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Audible. Episodes are also available on our PGT YouTube channel under playlists. Our intro and outro music are licensed from Melody Loops. Thanks again, key holders. Keep unlocking curiosity, creativity, and innovation with your students. Stay kind and courageous, and I'll see you next time.